Hello. Hi and welcome to this video about books. Hi and welcome to my channel and this November book haul. I've bought fewer books this month than I've usually done the past few months, but that is a very good and decent thing to do because I read about 4 to 5 books a month and then I buy 20 and it just doesn't add up. This month as well, I've tried only buying second-hand books again, but the one book that I haven't bought second-hand, and you might have seen it in the intro, is of course The Promise by Damon Galgut. This year's Booker Prize winner, I've talked a little bit or a lot about the Booker Prize in earlier videos, and we have the answer for which book that won. Kinda disappointed after reading some books and hoping they would win, but some of you that watches my videos has talked about this book and said that this was great, so I had to read it, and now I'm going to. I don't know what to expect. People say that it has a lot of twists and turns, and it will surprise me. This was one of the books that I didn't think was going to be amazing, so I'm hoping to be surprised, and I think I will be. We meet a South African family in a funeral where the younger generation is not happy about how a black woman that has been helping the family for years has been treated. Other than that, I really don't know where this book is going, and I don't want to read more about it. I just have to read it soon. I think I will like the book, now that people around me tell me that the book is great. Let's just see if our feelings are aligned. But this, I think, will be my next read. It's important for my confidence to read this book in particular as soon as possible. Then we go over to the thrifted books. And the funny thing about thrifted books, I said this earlier, is that I often judge the books by their covers. Instead, when I go into a bookshop, I know which shelf I'm going to visit and which books I'm looking for. At the thrift store, I just buy the things I feel a connection to. The next book is a book I thought was more recent than it actually was, just because people have talked about it on the internet lately. And that is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Just appeared to me and I thought, haven't I seen this book around? And then I log on to internet and try to look up if this book is popular or not. It's maybe sad that my relationship towards many of these covers are related to the rating they have on Goodreads, for example, but that's the way it is. It's a learning process, and in this way I can read books that I hadn't really thought I would read. So that is a positive. The Fault in Our Stars is translated to Norwegian, and I'm going to translate the Norwegian translation for you. And I'm sorry for my language now, but the Norwegian book is translated to Fuck Fate. So a bit more direct, brutal, and less sophisticated Norwegian title. I would never think that those two titles were the same book, but it is. The book is about a 16-year-old girl that gets cancer and then is forced to be a part of a cancer support group where she meets a person who has earlier had cancer and she falls in love. A real tearjerker. That's at least what people tell me. So that's number 2. My next purchase is also my favorite purchase. It's Chasing the Scream, The Search for the Truth About Addiction by Johann. And as it says, it's a book about addiction, drug abuse, and the history of drug politics in the world. It's a long time since I've read a non-fiction book, and I've sort of missed it in some way. I really liked having the spectrum to go back and forth between such different reading experiences. And so I was very happy when I found this book. This is a book I've heard a lot about from podcasts over the years. It was released in 2015. This is a very hot topic in Europe right now. In Germany, they are talking about legalizing marijuana, and Norway has its debate regarding the subject, not on the German level, but a couple levels beneath. And I find the topic very interesting. I'm a bit surprised that I found this book at a flea market, but that's why I'm so happy with this purchase, and it looks brand new, so that doesn't mean that much to me, but still happy it is. And then there's one book that, because of the pandemic, just kept appearing all over, and I understand why. And that's, of course, this book. Such beautiful covers on many of these old books. It's Albert Camus with The Plague. Don't know if you can see that. I have no idea how you pronounce that name. He is a French author born in Algeria, and this book is of course about a plague, which is very ironic to be reading about. I don't know. I suspect that many people have read these kinds of books in this time, or I think you have two kinds of people: those people who read these books and two people that really doesn't read these books at this time. I'm not in either of those camps. I just thought that this would be an interesting book to read. It might be even more interesting to read it after we're finished with the pandemic. Still trying to decide. Camus won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1957, and this book came out in 47, right after the World War. It's about a plague that starts in North Africa. When you read this book, you can also understand that it's hinting to the time of war and Nazism in the way he describes the things in the book, after what I can gather. But a huge classic and an author I did not know about before the pandemic started. So if I love this book, that will be one positive thing about the pandemic, in addition to people reading more books. That's also a positive. Can't really say I've reflected a lot of positive around the pandemic, so might start now. It's starting to form a pattern here of which books people are trying to get rid of after the pandemic, because the next book I found was The Death of Grass by John Christopher. That book also is about a virus that kills off crops and lead to starvation and then worse things. And the reason I picked this book up is because I really love the layout of the Penguin Modern Classic books. These books and this layout is something that I really always have loved. It's something that I just think of as profound and good, even though I have no idea how good the books actually are. But it's something that just seems like quality to me. And that has to be very excellent marketing. Just doesn't make any sense other than many of these books being short and having... I don't know. There's just something about these books. Anyway, we start off with a virus and end up with pure barbarism, it seems. I think we end up with a bit more dystopian novel than the last one, and this is just a feeling, it's not something that I know. I also enjoy the title, The Death of Grass, because it's such a brutal title that says so much with only 4 words. Yes? The next book is from an author I feel like I'm starting to hoard the books of, and that's Kazou Ishiguro, and with this Never Let Me Go. The reason for this is that this is, of course, an author that has released a lot of books that seems to be worth reading. But also, the last 5 times I picked up a new book, I've been thinking about reading Remains of the Day. I always pick up 2 books each time I'm going to read a new book, and I sort of walk around the house with 2 books and try to decide. And that one has been in my hand for 5 times now. And even next time I think I'm going to read Damon Galgut, but Remains of the Day is high on my TBR. At least. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2005. It's about a woman that goes to boarding school in England, where she learns all the important topics of the school, but she doesn't really learn anything about what the outside world is. And when she finishes school, she goes out into the world and discovers that the school she went to really isn't a place she thought it was. I don't know more about this book than that, but it seems intriguing. Kazou Ishiguro just keeps on appearing. Now with his book Clara and the Sun also longlisted for this year's Booker Prize. So a popular writer, and a writer I presume writes in a very good way. The next book on the list I thought was newer than it was, and I also thought it was a different book than I bought. And that's The Seventh Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book I sort of in my head thought was Mexican Gothic. You might think that's weird. I made a video about horror books I would like to read, and Mexican Gothic was on that list. And I don't know if this is the correct way of saying it, but I'm a very graphic person. So I thought this book was the same as Mexican Gothic. It was something about the front cover. Let's see if we can get the front cover up here so I can show you what I mean. Or hopefully show you what I mean. It's a disaster if you don't agree at all. No, it's not. But this book is, of course, also a book that has been around a lot in the latest years, and that's why I thought this was newer than it was, because it's still very popular on all the social media channels. and a very popular author. I can't really say that I knew what I was getting into when I bought this book, because I thought it was the other one. But it's about a Hollywood icon that's ready to talk about her past, and she contacts this reporter that doesn't understand why she contacts her, because she is not that famous. And so their life seems to intertwine in a weird way. This book has an extremely high rating on Goodreads. It's rated at 4.45 at this time from 600,000 people. I hope this book is good, or is it just that it's very, very good for one specific group of people and those have all read it and love it? Don't know. Going to find out. And now I was talking about a book that I thought was another book because the covers resembled, and remembering words, it's not my strongest side. And I'm going to emphasize this with the next book. And the next book is Malibu Rising. The reason I say this is because this is a book also from the same writer. I did not notice that it was the same writer before I took these two books and placed them on top of each other, and then saw, oh, those names resemble a bit. Quite hopeless in that department. But this cover is my most viewed cover this year, I believe. And I love the colors. A very nice cover. And when this stands in my shelf, it really sticks out and brings some joy to my life. So if I enjoy the book as much as I enjoy this cover, I will be a very happy reader. I'm very happy that I now know the connection between these two books. Also have to mention that this is my favorite size book. You can see these two together. It's a bit larger, not much, but I get the feeling when I hold the book that it's a bit larger. And it's a very large font, which I really, really enjoy. And it just feels like a proper book. I especially don't like reading about modern popular books too much, because I often feel when I read about these books in particular, I spoil too much when I read about them. So the only thing I'm going to say about this book is that 4 siblings are together for a celebration of sorts, and for the next 24 hours many things are going to change. I don't really think that I'm the right person to read this book. I said that I love the cover, and I really do, but it also makes me feel like this book isn't for me. It feels too modern in a way. I like having books that I feel are modern in my shelf. And now over to a book that's not modern, but feels kind of modern. I don't know. It's Henry James's Portrait of a Lady, with this gruesome cover. Sort of colorful, just not. This book seems to be a favorite of many people on BookTube, because it's not that highly rated, so in total on Goodreads, for example, but people on BookTube seem to like this book a lot. The sad thing about this book is that it's a highly abbreviated version. Okay, this is kind of funny because I don't know if you can see it, but it says it's a one number here, which just means that this is actually just half the book. And I realize that now. This is about the worst thing that could happen to me, because am I the kind of person who wants to go out in the world and actually try to find the second book? Or am I just going to buy a new book? You decide in the comments. And it's no joke, I just realized this now. Buying books at thrift stores can be a surprising affair. I feel like the plot is quite regular for the time. It's about a woman that's being sent off to Europe by her aunt, and then expected to marry a person of her caliber in her class, but then she falls in love with another person, and she's persistent to find her own happiness. How it ends, I don't know. And I will never know, because I'll never find the second book. Many people have said that this book resonates with the younger crowd, even today. And that's the same feeling I get when I visit the social media channels. So that gives me a great hope for this book. And then we've come to the last book on the list, meaning I've bought 10 books this month. And that's only about little above double of what I'm actually reading per month. So that should be sufficient. The next book on the list is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Have no idea how you pronounce that name either, but this is also one of the books that I've talked about in the videos about 10 horror books I would like to read, up here somewhere. It really seems to be one of those books that you have to read. And the author also seems to have a lot of books that I could enjoy reading, so if I read this book and like this book, there are so many more possibilities out there, which I like thinking that way. The book is about a woman that hasn't been very lucky in her life. She's been orphaned and life has been kind of sad. And then she meets this rich man and her life just seems to go really her way. And I just highly doubt that. Of course, this being a horror book. Don't know if the plot seems very interesting, but the book is supposed to be great, so I just have to think that it is. That was the list for November, and many shocks on this list, for me at least this month. Might be a good thing. That means that I've learned something this month, and that's a positive already before I've read the books, so can't be too sad about that. Now I just have to find out which books I'm reading first, and that's always a struggle. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy my channel, and subscribe to my channel if you like my content. And then I'll just see you next time. Bye!